my story with BitStamp goes way, way back. And I actually remember using BitStamp back in the days, like 10 years ago or so. I also remember I went to a conference in San Jose in 2013, which everyone was like, crypto became something. So that was the first conference with more than 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And I met with the BitStamp founding team, and at that time I was a Kraken. And then fast forward, starting Chainalysis, and I went to Slovenia and trained the team there at BitStamp, which was like fun experience, a nice part of Europe, very, very nice, and so on. So, we get some chairs now. I can grab that as well. You do this. Okay, you get this one then. Cool. You do it this way. Nice. So now it's
we're going to talk for an hour, right?
You're going to sit here for an hour. So that's the reason for this. Cool. Yeah. So it goes way back, and it's always fun to check in again. And we met each other briefly the other day, but I'm super curious to like share with the rest of the audience and everyone and hear more about BitStamp. But maybe first of all, it would be interesting to hear a little bit about like your career and how come you started as Chief Operating Officer for BitStamp.
Well, first of all, Michael, I mean, it's really a pleasure to be here. And we have been a long-time user of Chainalysis, and it's really a key part of so much of what we do for onboarding, for compliance operations, risk management, all those things. And I was very pleased to see a lot of the things that were just presented. I can see a lot of use for that. I've been with BitStamp for about a year and a half, but I've known the BitStamp team since 2015. And I was part of a startup then called BitNet, and because I came out of payments, out of PayPal. And a couple of founders from Visa CyberSource said, there's an opportunity here for getting settled a lot faster than credit cards, having a lot lower fees, all of these great advantages for merchants to make payments online. But we did that for 18 months, and then we folded because it was very hard to get past the volatility piece with merchants. And so we were a little ahead of our time, but what you mentioned about stablecoin, now that really changes everything for payments. You know, it is a major, major use case. So my opportunity with BitStamp, with our new CEO, Jean-Baptiste Graftillo, was really to run everything non-crypto related, technology-wise, and everything on the operational side. So that's why Chainalysis is so essential to the operations teams.
That's awesome. And it's actually funny because I remember Jonathan and I back in maybe 2016 had a long walk with a lot of people from BitNet in San Francisco. Yes. Which is like a completely other, it's a sidetrack. It's nothing to do with
That's right.
I just reminded myself about it. So, but jumping back to BitStamp, and I said earlier today that the crypto windows are kind of over, but there's still clearly a macro window right now, and you clearly see like the economy is slowing down and so on. So how has that been for BitStamp, and what has been your like, how have you weathered the storm, to put it that way, over the last year, basically?
Yeah, I mean, for probably everybody in the room, 22 was a very difficult year for this industry. It eroded trust, really, you know, in with retail especially, and on the institutional side, those that were thinking of getting in really put the brakes on kind of projects that they had. So for us in 22, it was definitely a lot of crisis management. What do we do around the main failures that you had mentioned before? Fortunately, we've taken, and I think this goes back to the founders 11, 12 years ago, they took a very conservative approach to the way they were managing the business. And also this drive towards licensing, right? Sort of getting in more of a traditional finance model for running the business, governing the business, the kind of requirements that we have on how we hold customer funds, on how we custody crypto assets, all of these things, that we sort of took a sheet from the traditional finance world and built that up over these last 10, 11 years. And although we were hurt by the business decline, we were really able to weather all of these other collapses within the industry. But it did show us that there's a lot more in terms of diversification and having plan Bs in your business than at any other time.
Yeah, and definitely it meant that like anyone who were exposed for a lot of leverage, they had a very hard time last year. And the less leverage that was there, like the easier it became. So I know BitStamp from back in the days, it's been much more rock solid in many ways and been like stable. So that's great to hear. So like jumping to the completely opposite of like being stable and solid and so on, that's like innovation, or maybe it goes hand in hand. But there's a lot of things happening in the crypto industry. And where do you see BitStamp's role, or what are your bets into innovation in crypto today?
We have been pretty selective in the kind of like crypto assets that we offer on the exchange. You know, we don't have 350 assets on the exchange. We have 75 to 80. So we've tried to be very, sort of cautious in terms of what we offer to our customers, because that was another thing we learned over the last year, is that there is an obligation around customer protection, investor protection, and doing more to inform our customers on the exchange and what they're investing in. And so if part of it is we've been spending a lot of time on what we offer on the exchange. Another is going into, I would say, making it easier for people to understand what they're investing in and how they do that, very much like the making it easier online, like what you were showing on the tool. Going into, so that's on the retail side, and then on the institutional side is the same people that are making markets in commodities, FX, and these other things in traditional world have been in crypto. And they're building their business, and they're expecting the same things. So if you're an institutional investor out here, you're looking for margin trading, you're looking for credit, you're looking for derivatives, you're looking for these other things than just sort of trading, buying and selling of a crypto asset. So for us this year, we're really working on the institutional retail side and giving them the features they need. So another interesting thing with crypto is that it's kind of born global. It's like there's no we only work one jurisdiction. You kind of have to because of regulation and so on. But how have you navigated the regulatory landscape? I know that you've been active in the US, and there's like a lot of different jurisdictions to play in. And how have you navigated that, and what's your strategy around like global regulation, and what are the things you don't hope happen in the regulatory space? Yeah, overregulation is probably what we don't hope to happen, or an outright ban, right? These are the kind of things that sort of were talked about and in the news after something as large as FTX collapsing, and the other enforcement actions that have been happening over the last 3-4 months, like within the U.S. So we have about 450 people at BitStamp, and about a third of those people are in compliance and risk and legal. And that's where we really watch our obligations. So, we have invested in the people there to do like regulatory watch, know what's coming, and then start to bring it to our product teams, our engineering teams, our internal governance. So it's a model that's out there that's worked for many, many decades in the traditional financial world of just being abreast, keeping yourself abreast of what's happening for regulation. We're very happy about MiCA, very, very happy with that. And in the U.S., as you said in your opening remarks, that is we have a bit license with the NYDFS, and that is a very difficult sort of situation right now for us to really sort of manage. So, and we're also with the MAS on an application for services there. It's never ending, sort of monitoring and managing that. It's just never ending. It needs to be a resourced part of your business going forward if you're going to be an exchange and you're going to have a license. It's going to be absolutely necessary, and you need to invest in it so you don't have problems down the road. It's
definitely complicated, and it's kind of born with the internet, right? Because like having a website for one country was not really a thing. You could try to enforce it in many ways, and now we see it with crypto. It's like the same thing for a financial institution, and I think there's other kinds of finance, like TradFi could clearly enforce it, and it's been very much that way. DeFi is truly global, and if you think about BitStamp, how do you see yourself in that context of like traditional finance, DeFi, and other fintech companies? Where do you see your role long term? What is your target there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's 5 years ago it was probably, hey, everybody wanted to be in a global exchange. They wanted to offer this service to sort of anybody that had a willingness to open an account and trade on their platform. So there was a lot about account acquisition, whether you're at Binance or FTX or whomever, right? And for us, I think what we're seeing now is that it's very regional. Because of the commitment you need to make in licensing and everything else, you need to get it right. So for us, we're board in Europe. That's a main market for us. We want to make the US successful, and there's a few markets in Asia. So, and we're seeing that regulators and law enforcement are also a lot more aware of this idea of just putting up a website and waiting for people to come. If you're not licensed in that market, they're going to be on you asking, why are you offering the service to our citizens here? So for us, it's probably more regional and going deeper in those regions and really serving them better.
And then how do you, I would say, for all of the different policies and things that happens in different jurisdictions, how do you internalize that as a company? How do you bring them in and when they're coming through?
On the license, on the
regulatory side.
On the regulatory side? Yeah, it's. I mean, we have a roadmap, right? We have a roadmap for compliance just as much as we have for sort of anything else. It's onboarding and compliance and development, and that will sort of basically make changes on how we onboard customers, and especially what I liked about what I saw earlier was enhanced due diligence and overall transaction monitoring the relationship with that customer is something nobody really has gotten right in this industry yet. And it's even in traditional finance, it's very, very much a struggle. So having these kinds of tools and being able to build more of a workflow around it is really important to us. Yeah, because other than sort of onesie twosie kind of or custom ad hoc, investigations just don't go very far. You can't scale the business that way. So having somebody where you can build workflows is important to us. And we just deliver it through that product roadmap, right? And try to build the systems that support that. So probably which most of the people in the room are doing.
Okay, now I'm going to jump to, I would say, links questions. And this is a little bit more related to the room here. And then in the sense that this is about private and public sector meeting. And you're a private sector institution, but I'm pretty sure you have had a lot of cooperation with the public sector as well. So if there's anything you can talk into I would say great examples of BitStamp working together with the public sector. Yeah,
there's folks from the public sector here, like law enforcement, for instance, or the regulator. I think everybody with a license is really trying to build a good working relationship with a regulator. It often depends on who they are and how they like to work. But we're fortunate in Luxembourg that there is a very open door for being able to work through either issues or new changes in regulation and law, and that really helps a lot. With our FIU, there's a couple of conferences a year that we're always a part of, and Doman, part of my KYT team, is here, and he in the very last one, there you are. Very last one, he presented on what we do within the industry, tried to provide better suspicious activity reporting, transaction reporting to our FIUs, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. Maybe one last thing is, because we're not of the scale of a Coinbase and a Binance, we're just as good, but we're just not that large. We're better, but we're not that large. We don't have a government relations or a public relations team, right? But we're often asked to come to Brussels, for instance. And there was a U.S. congressional staffing delegation that came there a couple of months ago. And the one thing that I took away from that, it was a morning over a couple of hours, and we really thought that they were coming to talk about MiCA and what they could learn from MiCA and bring it back to the United States. They didn't want to have any part of that. They wanted to know what the purpose of cryptocurrency was. They wanted to know what the purpose of blockchain was. Yeah. It was very fundamental. So I sort of took away in that there's still a lot of education, around what these use cases are and what problem they're solving. Even in the EU, you see it from ECB and others.
Yeah.
But so don't underestimate that, I think, with the audience, as well. So that's part of our public sort of conversation.
I've seen that as well. There's definitely a lot of education that needs to happen still. Have you had any collaborations with other private sector companies that you'd like to highlight or say working together that way?
On the private sector side, it's more of the industry associations. Like everybody probably in the room, electronic money for us is still very important, especially with MiCA now having an electronic money token as e-money, essentially. So the EMA is a good partner for us. We're also a member of the ABBL, which is the Bankers Association of Luxembourg. We sort of use that leverage to understand their issues, and CBDC is one that we're using them to understand. Digital Euro is another one, and so I think those partnerships have really helped us, or trade associations like that have really helped us over time.
That makes sense. So I mentioned earlier today around the global, we are in a global window, right? Like a macro window that way in many ways, and clearly the banking crisis is top of mind in many ways. Has that affected you as a company in any way, in terms of financial infrastructure, how you think about financial infrastructure in the future and so on, and yeah?
Yeah, it's a big one. I think it was one of the lessons that everybody learned. We learned it last year. You can never have too many banking relationships, and it's almost like a sales BD kind of a role. You need people out there trying to get new banking relationships in different regions and for different reasons. If you want a tier one or sort of those mid-tier banks, it takes a lot more effort to go in and get them. So Silvergate and Signature, if you're a BitStamp customer, you probably saw on any deposits you made in the US, we banked with them, right? But we were able to get out of that situation without any harm, fortunately, because we had options. But that's what we learned. I think banking, you need to have options. Custody, you better have options, because that might be the next thing. So if you're not really sort of active standby in this business and just thinking, I'm just going to build one sort of road, you're sort of shortchanging yourself, I think, when these crises come, and then you really have a bigger problem to solve.
Yeah. And staying with the macro, so we clearly saw in the US the interest rate going up and up and up, and it feels, when I look at the picture in Europe, that it's also happening, but maybe a little bit delayed compared to the US, how fast it's going. Right. So there might be an expectation that the interest rate continues to climb here in Europe for a little while. How do you see that affecting both your business, but also crypto in Europe in general?
Yeah, I mean, people have choices, right? In the past, in the low interest rate environment, as everybody knows, they looked at staking and the lending and DeFi and these kinds of things. They go, oh, I can get a great return. It was just sort of personal finance 101, right? Yes. And so I'm going to take my money out of my local bank and I'm putting it into this. Now, slowly, traditional banks are giving more interest to savers, traditional savers, maybe not as much to cover inflation, but they're giving a little bit more. So now you just have this, what do I do with my investment? Do I put it into crypto or do I put it into euro? And I think that's what we're faced with if customers say, am I going to invest, buy and hold in one of the assets that we offer on the exchange, or I'm just going to put it into something else like in traditional. So within the business case, there's probably more options for customers now to get better yield than just the capital appreciation that they were hoping for from the exchange.
Yeah. Okay, so then I'm going to jump into the last question, and that's a little bit forward-looking, because when you think about, everything was kind of forward-looking here, but clearly, what are the things around the crypto industry and the potential use cases that excite you the most, and where do you see these things going on 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think for our business, it's a very difficult question to answer, right? It's a very difficult one. I mean, we've been doing a lot of talking, thinking about this. I think in terms of the exchange, that's definitely not going anywhere. We're very, very confident in the exchange, and that is a business model that is going to continue, especially on the institutional investor side, and also financial institutions that want to bolt on to an exchange and offer it to their customers. There's a big use case for that. Then we had a conference last week on asset management, and there especially in Luxembourg, which is number 2 in terms of asset management and mutual funds in the world, there is definitely interest on the asset manager side to build crypto-based funds. Yes. Yeah, and we want to be part of helping with that, with either the infrastructure or access to customers and so on. And then, as you said earlier, there's all these other things on payments, for instance, that might not be so much in our business, but we definitely see it as a big use case. So, if you're an exchange or you have a set of customers, there's probably a lot of sellers and buyers that are on the exchange. And if you can offer payments there, it's just another additional feature within your relationship with that customer that will keep them on your, keep doing business with you, right?
For sure.
Until they find a better deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thank you so much, Jack, for joining us here. And
thank you very much.
Looking forward to talking to you in the coffee break as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.